Every person has some form of conditioning whether they realize it or not. From holding the door open for the person behind you to how you regulate and deal with emotions. The reason behind an individual's actions or thoughts often source from the idea of conditioning. So, how does an individual's conditioning influence how they interact with society? What is conditioning? Conditioning is the process of training or accustoming a person or animal to behave in a certain way or to accept certain circumstances. An individual starts to be conditioned when they are very young. Parents and schooling are the main sources of one's conditioning when growing up. So how do these things lead to positively or negatively affecting mental health? How do people cope with negative conditioning, such as using substances as an escape? In order to answer these questions around conditioning, we have to go to its roots. How does the way we've been conditioned in school and by our parents impact our views?
We surveyed students to see how they think school and family has impacted their ways of interacting with the world. When asked the question, how has school changed how you view yourself, a large majority of students stated that their grades had a negative impact on how they viewed themselves. They began to perceive themselves as unintelligent once getting a bad grade and started to compare themselves to other peers. When asked, how has school changed how you view others, some students said that they will isolate themselves from other students due to a grade barrier, or see others differently based on how that person views school compared to them. In Aldous Huxley's Brave New World, the alphas are constantly competing with the world around them to be the best. Due to their conditioning, they learn that in order to have worth, you must be better than other people. This connects to how students subconsciously compete and compare themselves to each other because school conditions them to be rewarded after getting high grades. Majority of the students responded saying that they believe the school system needs to be changed due to a different state of the world we live in today, compared to when the system was first created, and that education needs to be catered towards all different types of learners. In Brave New World, lower-class jobs are comparative to school and how they are built off of an efficiency model. The people work in factories, they get paid for their work, and then they do it all over again. There are similarities to how school is run, such as being rewarded for high grades or a job well done.
When asked about their parent or guardian's impact on how they view themselves, some respondents stated how their parents can influence how they view their own intelligence, appearance, or interests negatively or positively. Parents or guardians can condition self-image depending on what they do, such as giving their child too much independence, then leading to a fear of asking for help, or giving validation on certain accomplishments to then lead to a higher view of themselves. They also stated that their parenting styles aren't always perfect and that there is an upside as well as a downside to each style, such as respondents sharing when being taught to view people in a positive way, it made differentiating between kind and toxic behaviors difficult. On the contrary, being taught to view people in a negative light caused them to have a cynical view of the world. When asked if they liked their parents' parenting style, the responses were mainly mixed, including how they liked parenting styles that included independence but also included a close relationship with that parent. Others said they do not like their parents' way of parenting because of distant relationships and unfairness.
Growing up is a very important part of one's life. Their conditioning from school, family, and other experiences can make or break them in the future.
I guess school has kind of caused me to have a dependency towards substance abuse and kind of, I guess, because school is really stressful, it's kind of like conditioned me towards doing drugs. So I kind of got used to it and became a habit. And now, because of that, it's kind of an addiction that kind of, you know, yeah. I think the reason that I have such substance abuse problems is because I was conditioned by the school system to need an escape from reality because of all the stress that the school system puts on us. So with all the work that's piled on, and university applications and the marks from 0 to 100, that's all that you're graded on, that's all that matters. We just need a way to get out of here, to escape and to not have to think about it. And so that's what substances provide. And I think a lot of people don't really understand that.
Everything else is a lower priority than my own mental health, and drugs give me a break from the things that stress me out. So I do that, and there's not a lot of time to de-stress in school, so I'm skipping my class to smoke weed.
You know, there's a lot of pressures in life to fit in sometimes, you know? There's a lot of struggles and pains I have to go through in order to succeed. And I've always had such an academic pressure on my life, you know? Do good in school, go to university. But sometimes it's just too much. And eventually I think when I, met the wrong kind of people, at school, they were like, hey, do you want to go smoke some ganja? I was like, yeah, sure, because they were older than me, and I wanted to seem cool, guys. I don't know, it was scary. Um, but and then it was nice, and I started skipping classes more because I was so scared in the environment that it was putting me in. I was scared of my teachers. I felt like I couldn't do anything. I don't know. I was didn't fit in enough to do things right. I was struggling, and I just turned to substances, I think, to cope with that. Yeah. I was always like awkward in school because people always thought I was like weird. And so because of that, I like stopped talking to people. And so now I have like no social skills because I got so used to like not talking to people because I didn't want them to think I was weird. So I just didn't do that. But then I got comfortable with people who like smoked weed and stuff. And so I started smoking weed because that's the only people I felt comfortable with.
The citizens of Brave New World depend on Soma to keep them happy and to keep their mood stable. However, in real life, that's not far from the truth. We also depend on drugs and alcohol, as well as prescription medications, to keep our happiness up and to keep our mood stable. So, there's a huge connection between substance abuse in Brave New World and substance abuse in real life. We see that with John's mother, who overdoses on Soma and dies an early death because of the stress that she felt and the deprivation from those drugs all the years on the Savage Reserve. Even though she had the mesa or the alcohol, it wasn't the same as the drugs. And we can see that in our real life, where we have people start by taking like weed, a gateway drug, and then they build and build and build on that because they just want more and more relief from the stress in their real life. In our world, school is comparable to the savage reservations of Brave New World. This is demonstrated by when Lenina took a visit to the Savage Reservation, and she had to bring her Soma, and she had to take a Soma holiday while she was there because the stress of it all was too much. This is comparable to how in our world, children take drugs and medication to escape the stress that school inflicts on them. Both are very stressful situations, and in both cases, people took medications or drugs to help them not be in the reality of the world that they're in and escape from it.
Another example of how Brave New World is connected to our world is through the use of Soma, and how that's connected is in Brave New World, it's treated as a reward for the lower castes, such as the epsilons, the gammas, and the deltas, because for them, like in part of the story, they talked about how it was treated as a reward once they finish their work or once they're done with their schooling. And I guess in our case, like with reality, lots of students, especially with school, they use drugs or they use some kind of substance abuse to kind of reward themselves to get through something or to finish work or use for like after work. So that's kind of related how they're both seen as rewards in both cases.
And another idea that's connected to that is the idea of like Friday night, Saturday night on the weekend, people go out, they get blackout drunk, they do tons of drugs like Friday after school, Friday after work, and it's almost as if they put in so many hours of work and stress through the week and then they let go and they just reward themselves with like drugs to help them escape the pressures of their life and just forget what happened during the week. And that's totally connected. And we can see that in Brave New World with the lower castes, like at the end of the day, they get their rations of Soma.
The final connection that we found that connects Brave New World to our reality with the use of Soma is how in Brave New World, the government kind of controls people by using Soma to keep them, I guess, pain-free, so they think they're happy if they get negative emotions. then they take the Soma, and that's kind of like how doctors prescribe like antidepressants or like anti-anxiety meds and just kind of all those medical prescriptions, I guess. And so that kind of connects because doctors also do that to keep people happy, or at least make them believe that they are happy, and that is exactly what they do in Brave New World as well, so that was just another connection.
Modern day examples of Soma include Zoloft, Prozac, Lexapro, and even more extreme medications that doctors will prescribe to people, like Valium and codeine. It's crazy how we have these modern day, like, variations of Soma that do the exact same thing as they do in Brave New World, and yet it's completely normalized. We read Brave New World and we're like, this is so crazy, the government prescribes these hard drugs to people to make them feel happy, and yet it's happening to us right now in our real world.